Wait, hold on. We've got a little bit of breaking news. What stands out about what he's got so far?
If Bo Nix is a 16th overall pick, I will grow out my beard and I will never shave again. There it is.
Wait, what if he's a 15th?
Does that count?
Yeah, 16th or like 16th or higher.
Yeah.
Clip this.
Yeah, don't pin us on a technicality where he has to be 16. You're saying if he is 16 or higher, you're growing out your beard.
Yes. If Bo Nix is a 16th overall pick, I will grow out my beard and I will never shave again.
If Bo Nix is a 16th overall pick, I will grow out my beard and I will never shave again.
Yeah. So, all right. Danny is sick as a dog right now. He popped
He's
on.
faking.
No. I got to give him credit. He jumped on and he showed us the stubble is growing, right?
Mm-hmm.
He showed us that he is at least starting to take the efforts. And his radio partner, Dusty Dvorak, they had me on the show this morning, and he's on the team. He said, do not let Danny get away with it. Tom, you were on with Danny on CBS Sports HQ on Friday. I did not get a chance to watch. I was at a doctor's appointment, one of my kids' doctor's appointment. So what's the proposal? What's the compromise that you proposed on CBS Sports HQ?
Well, I ambushed him on the show. He thought he was up there with Prisco to talk about the draft, and then I just showed up just to call him out on his little beard thing. First of all, he is trying to get out of it. He's truly sick today, but he's trying to get out of it. He's been working behind the scenes. He's been trying to angle for ways to get out of this deal. So I came up with a compromise because Danny's wife does not like him with the beard, does not want him to have the beard. So here's my compromise. He has to grow the beard. There's no getting out of it. He has to have a beard. His wife's just going to have to deal with it. But he doesn't have to go complete Duck Dynasty. He can trim it. He can manicure it. You know, he could groom himself. He just has to have the beard, and he has to keep it not forever, but until Bo Nix wins his first NFL game as a starter. So if Bo Nix doesn't start next season, or they go 0-17 or whatever, Danny can't shave. So Danny now, after hating on Bo Nix and saying there was no way he'd be a top 16 pick in the NFL draft, Danny has to become the biggest Bo Nix believer on earth if he wants to get rid of his beard.
Bud, what do you think? Oh, no, you're good. You're muted.
There are some interesting opportunities here, I think. We did have one listener, I think it's probably a lawyer. He kind of parsed Danny's words there. And Danny did say, if Bo Nix goes in the top whatever, I will grow my beard and not shave again. But Danny did not actually specify what he would shave or not shave again. So, I mean, there are options here which Danny's wife would probably hate even more, I would think. And options in which I am not particularly interested in enforcing or checking up on. But
unless Manscaped wants to sponsor the show.
Yeah,
Danny not so short hairs, I guess.
I love tying it to the success of Bo Nix.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, you've got to grow a beard
because there's an out. Like
you don't have to Duck Dynasty this, but your release from this prison can only come from the sweet arm and legs of Bo Nix.
Like he could be done by September 1st. He could shave, or he could have that thing through the winter. We don't know.
Can we say Tom's joke that he said or is that not allowed? I don't know. Is that
I don't know if we could. I mean,
okay.
Rip Man, you can figure it out from there.
If we ever do like a live show that's like not recorded and released to everybody, just like a live in-person show, we'll that'll be one of the Easter eggs.
What about the all right? Is it a regular season game?
Yeah, preseason does. I mean, Roger Goodell said this weekend he doesn't even want to play the preseason anymore. They shouldn't count for this bet.
It would add a lot of interest to early August if it was based on a Bo Nix passing touchdown.
But how would that work? Like, is it like a pitcher? If you throw the touchdown that ends up being the game-winning touchdown, does he get credit for the win? Because he's only going to play a couple of series.
I that would be giving him an easier out, because then it's not tying him to a Broncos win, but it's just tying him to his first professional touchdown regular season or preseason. That we would all get dialed in for these Broncos preseason games. And every single time Bo Nix is on the field, Danny and his whole family are just sitting there rooting for Bo Nix to throw a touchdown, only to be so disappointed when he hands it off at like the 3-yard line. That, you know, that the fact that we could just be hinging on every single time Bo Nix drops back to throw, that would be his release from bearddom.
And there is, I mean, for Danny, there is a good shot that Bo Nix will be the starter. They did take him with the 12th pick of the draft after all. You don't usually do that to a guy you're just planning on sitting right away.
This was while we're sitting here in the Bo Nix world, and we do have a lot of just bigger, you know, NFL draft recap to come. We're going to link up those of you who subscribe on the audio side. You saw that after the first round, you know, we got a nice little present dropped in from Ryan Wilson, Rick Spielman, our friends at With the First Pick, the NFL Draft Podcast. We're going to be linking up with them a little bit later as we already look ahead to 2025. That'll be, you know, their portion of it. We'll stay here today, just looking back at the weekend. Elliot says, do you guys feel like you owe an apology to Joel Klatt for ripping his Bo Nix pick at 12? Not an apology. I think that we questioned it. But you brought up the great, like, does he know something? Because he's like, you know, lives in Colorado.
He's a Colorado guy. Yeah.
From Colorado. Like, does him putting Bo Nix at 12 mean that he was on the inside? Possibly, you know? Yeah, I tell you what, we've got an executive at CBS Sports Digital who reached out to me with the line of questioning that says, did the listener, username Super Mariota, who put the question in, calling back to the May 1st episode when he first said it? Because this is all brought back to earth. Just jumping in. A listener jumped into the 5-star mailbag, the big old bag of mail, username Super Mariota, and said, hey guys, on May 1st of 2023, Danny said this. What do you guys ready for this? It's almost as though I think it's Patrick Nix. I think it's somebody in Bo Nix's camp.
Might have been Sean Payton.
Has username Super Mariota and was and was definitely a little bit too plugged in on the possibility that Bo Nix might be a top 16 pick.
I would also say Joel Klatt was not the only person who had Bo Nix going to the Broncos at 12. It was like the reason Danny was worried, because there had been steam building up to this in the last week. And the thing about the week of the draft is there's always a lot of stuff, and you never know what's real or what's just teams floating stuff out there because they want you to think it. So, like, you start hearing Nix to the Broncos at 12, but also at the same time, like all day on Thursday, like every NFL reporter is tweeting about how this team's looking to trade up out of the top 10 or into the top 10 or trade down out of the top 10. It's like every team in the league was looking to trade. And I even tweeted, I said, would all these teams be sharing that they're open for business if they were actually receiving offers? And how many trades were there to get into the top 10? One. So it's like the week of the draft, you hear the Bo Nix is going to the Broncos. It's like, okay, somebody wants somebody to trade up. So that way they think they got to get Bo Nix or whatever quarterback they want. But I guess not. Like, Bo Nix going 12 was only the second biggest surprise in the top 15 as far as quarterbacks are concerned.
The Bo Nix's the betting market said over under 32 and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely a little bit of a surprise. There were only 5 schools who got double-digit NFL draft picks this year. They were Michigan, they were Texas, they were Alabama, Washington, and Florida State. Those are 5 schools. It's so tough to figure out how to rank those 5 schools. I mean, it can be so difficult. I mean, you could use draft picks. You could use their record last year. I mean, it's almost like we got to say one's got to go. Tom, let's play this game. It's Michigan, Texas, Alabama, Washington, and Florida State. If you had to put one to the side, which one would it be?
Well, I mean, Michigan, you can't put Michigan to the side because they had the most.
Right.
I would put Florida State to the side, honestly.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know.
It's just, it's just Jordan Travis, and you gotta think about who would you not want to play, right? I mean,
what happens if Jordan Travis isn't?
Who would you not want to play, right? Alabama or Florida State?
If Jordan Travis isn't drafted, what does that Florida State draft class really look like?
That's true. That's right. You got to think about these very silly hypotheticals and ignore everything that happened. That's the way we do it in college football.
Mhm.
Only 6 in the top 100. It's that's slacking.
So Michigan, how about another how smart or plugged in is our listenership, especially those who come to the tailgate and those who submit questions to the big old bag of mail. Remember how many Michigan players is Jim Harbaugh going to draft?
Mhm.
2. He still came through. What was it in the 3rd? Colson in the 3rd, and then someone else in the 7th.
Oh yeah, he took Cornelius Johnson in the 7th.
Yeah. So Junior Colson and Cornelius Johnson. That's our answer. I think they might have even set an over-under at 1.5. Congrats. The over hits. Jim Harbaugh drafts 2 Michigan Wolverines from Michigan's collection of 13. That falls short of the record. There was a little bit of buzz, a little bit of chatter or intrigue in terms of whether they would match or top Georgia's current record of 15 players in a single draft. What are some of the other sort of like school-specific stuff that might have stood out either on one end or the other?
I feel like the 49ers and the Lions they like draft guys who play hard and give a shit. Like consistently. I looked at like, okay, like that guy is a dude who cares. And I don't know if that's just something that culturally inside those two. I don't watch a lot of NFL. I looked at the drafts this morning. Damn, okay, like yeah, I like these.
It matches Dan Campbell. I mean, that's for sure.
Yeah. That's just 49ers too. I mean, it's 49ers don't want you if you're not willing to block or run through tackles. Like if you go out of bounds, the 49ers won't draft you. As far as teams, I mean, we kind of talked about Washington and how many of their guys not only went pretty early in the draft in the process, but did it with the draft capital value. It's just like that was pretty good. I was overall for teams, I don't know if there were any truly huge surprises other than the best teams in the country all had the most players drafted. Crazy.
So your joke over the weekend, Tom, actually inspired something that I wrote for CBSSports.com on Sunday. It was like winners, losers, but I said winner and loser, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Because on one hand, you only had 4 players drafted. And every single year since 2016, Ohio State has had 6 players or more drafted. So we were falling way off of the pace. But why do I say winner and loser? Like, sure, you're down there where you're with Iowa and Illinois with 4 players drafted. But if you had added Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, Emeka Ibuka, Travion Henderson, and Tyleik Williams at a minimum, I think all 5 of those players would have certainly been drafted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If everybody who could have gone did go for Ohio State, they would have had 9 or 10 players drafted and been right there among the best teams in the country. Instead, they are down near the bottom of the count from where they used to be and near the top of our preseason top 25 list, only challenging Georgia, because players who have the potential to be playing on Sundays this year are playing on Saturdays in Columbus for the Buckeyes. Those are pros, and they are going to be leading Ohio State.
Okay, Tom.
No, I was just going to say, you mentioned that Ohio State had as many draft picks as Illinois, and I think that is the key takeaway here is that Illinois has caught up to Ohio State. Ryan Day is on the hot seat, and in all seriousness, in the last 3 years, the most draft picks out of Big Ten schools have been Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, and then Illinois. So
I was on Dogs 247 this morning looking at Georgia's top 10 likely 2025 draft picks, and I had like a oh damn moment because Dom Lovett is 10.
He's at the bottom. Like there are 9 players who project to be more draftable than Georgia's best wide receiver, who is coming off a great spring.
Them and Ohio State kind of have a little bit of that same thing going on. Mm-hmm. They had some guys who could have gone, who didn't, and some really accomplished guys who were basically told to find somewhere else to play, I think, because the freshman we have behind you is better. So,
and also, too, like, we talk about Michigan having 13 guys taken. Michigan's got like another 5 or 6, like, first or second day guys on the team for next season already.
I'm like really confident Michigan has 4 or 5 top 100 picks in next year's draft who are not eligible for this one.
I think they have 3 in like the top 30.
They might have 3 first rounders on that defense.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. It was Graham Johnson. Like those are 3 guys that could have their names called definitely Thursday night of next year.
Jay Sean could, for sure. Like, we'll see about the back. I mean, it's pretty impressive. I wanted to point out, like, the positive impact that NIL is having on the sport, I think. So, like, Sam Hartman went undrafted, right? Like, Sam Hartman's value as a college player is way more than his NFL value. I know he got it like a decent undrafted free agent deal with the
Commanders.
Yes, thank you.
Jaden Daniels hot seat already.
Yes, but I mean, he probably made close to $1 million last year with Notre Dame, depending on which reports you believe. Some said more, some said less, but let's just ballpark it around there for the sake of argument. Like, that's an awesome thing to be able to do as a player, because sometimes your value actually is way more in college than it is the NFL. We did not have a quarterback pick between picks 15 and 150. It was like, hey, there's 6 QBs that we as the league think can play and play right now, and we're going to all jump up and take them. And then we're going to take 5 wild cards. It was like Joe Milton, Spencer Rattler, Jordan Travis, Michael Pratt, and one other of like guys who clearly need a lot of work if they want to play in the NFL, but do have some kind of tool.
Right.
You know, that maybe like an NFL, like with Milton, it's his arm, with Jordan, it's his legs, you know, like that type of thing. So, I mean, I think we're getting a higher quality of quarterback play staying in college for longer, because guys are not having to jump solely because of money before they're actually ready to go play.
It's a great call. I like that pointing out.
It's good for our game to not have like that much quarterback play.
Right. So on the conference count, the SEC leads the way with 59 picks. The Pac-12 finishes second among all others, which is one sweet final farewell for a league that's exploding this summer. I mean,
too late.
Yeah, they had a tremendous season on the field. 5-6 teams in the top 25 for most of the year. They have a tremendous showing here in the NFL draft, and yet. But let's disperse them a little bit. Let's put everybody where they're going to be. The Super 2, the Big Ten and the SEC combined had 55.5% of the NFL draft picks. All of the other conferences, all of the other countries, I mean, we're talking, you know, it doesn't matter whether it's, you know, ACC and Big 12 or Missouri Valley in England, okay? Like, everyone else in the world had 44 point something percent of the NFL draft picks, and the Super 2, the Big Ten and the SEC, are 55.5%. There has always been an uphill battle. I mean, ACC's flashed up there. Pac-12 has flashed up there. Big 12 has been kind of consistently behind, and losing Texas and Oklahoma is only going to further kneecap their NFL draft production. But, man, the consolidation of talent on full display with some of these NFL draft numbers.
I mean, that number is nuts, 55%. But what I think the other number is that I don't think has been discussed nearly as much, but I think is pretty pertinent too. What percentage of players drafted were Power 4 players compared to Group of 5 players?
Oh,
because
Group of 5.
You have really seen a dip in the players coming from the Group of 5 and as far as guys being taken.
And that's twofold, right? Number one, the best pro-producing programs are now in power conferences. Looking at Cincinnati, UCF, players that have had like good athletes that are always going to get scouts' attention. And then on the second piece of this being that because of the transfer portal, if you're really good at the G5, then you're probably entering the NFL draft after being a power conference player for at least one season.
I do think that there is a trend emerging, and I need to quantify this, so this is just anecdotally, but like eyeballing it. I think that transfer downs are largely overrated. Right? Like, meaning
going from P5 to G5 or P4 to G5.
Yes. Yeah. Like, if you have the talent to play at a P5, but you're having to transfer down to a G5, there's probably something else that is not immediately obvious, and you're not making it to the pros, right? Like, I see some of these teams that are really excited. Oh, we got this guy, you know, he signed at Tennessee. This guy signed at Michigan, and he transferred out and like way down. If you fall all the way out of the Power 5, that probably says something about your game to me. Like, I'm very skeptical of those type of transfers now.
What position? And again, you haven't run the data on this, so I'm not trying to put you in a difficult spot, but outside of quarterback, what position do you think we see that the most, the stepping down? Because we know how you pull up. You pull up because there's not only but so many offensive linemen and defensive linemen. So power programs with money to spend are like, hi, you're 6'2" and weigh at least 330 pounds. Sure, we'll teach you the rest.
I would
Probably a receiver.
Yeah, I was going to
Okay.
say receiver, defensive lineman would be my guess because it's just like the draft. Those are the value positions. So if you're a G5 team willing to take a lotto ticket on a P5 guy who hasn't gotten a starting job, it's probably going to be a receiver or a defensive lineman.
Yeah.
I will not. I would stop in terms of thinking that there's something wrong if you go from Super 2 to like ACC Big 12. I think you probably still could play in that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That just might be a depth chart, like spending power.
Might just be Oklahoma State's got more money than my ACC or my SEC team's willing to pay me right now.
Right. Like we've got a situation where you're the 5th best player in your position group at a Super 2 school. You can go be the 2nd best player and command a different salary at an ACC or Big 12 school. So I'm not going to cast judgment, but I do think that's a very astute observation. Okay. It's been out there for a long time. Did y'all get hot and bothered by the Michael Penix stuff? It feels like that's a bigger Atlanta Falcons NFL sort of topic. It didn't really get my gears going.
My problem with the pick has nothing to do with Michael Penix. I would not take Michael Penix with a top 10 pick, but if you believe in him, I mean, in this the QB market in the draft, you have to go get him. My only problem is the Falcons. It's like, well, then what the hell did you give Kirk Cousins all that money for if you're going to draft a guy in waiting who's already 24? Process-wise, it made no sense to me.
I totally agree. Like if you're taking Penix in the first round, it's because you think he's ready right now to win. He's 24 in a week. Drake May just turned 21. Like you have a little more kind of wiggle room for the prime of this guy's career, letting him develop type thing. That I would have had much less a problem with taking Penix there if it was a team that actually had planned to start him. Like if the argument's, hey, the rest of our roster is ready to win now, and we can have a cheap, cost-controlled quarterback for 4 to 5 years, play him in his ages 24 to 29 season, and then if he's not special, do what I assume San Francisco will do with Brock Purdy, which is not make the mistake of Daniel Jonesing him, and move on. But the fact that they're like, yeah, it's cool if he sits for 5 or 6 years. No, it's not, guys. You don't want a guy making his first career starts at 30 or 31. So that was wild. I'm not a Bucs fan. I don't really have an NFL team, but I have a lot of friends living in Florida who are Bucs fans. And I'm just like, guys, you're just sitting so pretty because the rest of this division is just so remedial, right? That you guys in comparison just make reasonably competent, not sexy, just okay picks. I mean, Carolina is a disaster. Right. The Saints are like a salary cap disaster, and Atlanta has no idea what the hell it's doing. So, I mean, congrats on the Bucs. They're going to be like the annoying Patriots teams, and the Patriots were actually good. I mean, they were great, obviously, but the rest of that division just sucked to high heaven. You're going to get a home playoff game for the next 100 years. It's crazy.
What the Penix pick immediately brought to mind. I'll go to another YouTube channel here. JT O'Sullivan, the former NFL quarterback, does a YouTube channel called the QB School. And the one thing he was saying in his quarterback draft rankings video he released last week or whatever is that there's a lot of reasons, quarterbacks won't work out at the NFL level. You talk about the supporting cast, you could talk about the coaching and the coaching change and all that kind of stuff. But he says he thinks the number one thing that hurts young quarterbacks is poor ownership. And I will just say, based on what I've heard, it wasn't the general manager or the coaches pushing for Michael Penix in the top 10 in Atlanta. It was the person who makes the final decision on all the checks.
Oh, wow. Isn't he pretty old?
He's 80. And he's very much in a win now mode. But again, even if that's your whatever, I don't think Michael Penix is the win now move. It should just be draft the best whatever player that's there because you're trying to win now. That's why you signed Kirk Cousins. But I've been told from some people that it was very much an ownership decision.
Have you followed the NFL analytics idea that there is no such thing as a steal, but there is such thing as a reach?
What is it?
Yeah.
It's interesting. So they use I know Ben Robinson does grinding the mocks, and there's the consensus big board guys and stuff. And the concept is essentially, if you want to boil it down, if you jump up to take a guy well above where everybody else has him, chances are you're not correct because you have to be like the one team that's right, and the other 31 teams have to basically like be wrong in their evaluation. However, if kind of the same thing applies to like, oh, they got a guy, he slipped like 90 spots past where he's projected. That's not actually a steal. The overwhelming likelihood is that the league knows something about this guy. And I honestly, the team taking him probably knows it too, because the fact that he slid this far.
That you're just like, whatever.
We can't believe he was still on the board.
Yeah, exactly. But like these reaches, like the odds that Rukaroro ends up being a steal at where the Falcons took him, which was way, way over big board analysis, I believe, is pretty low. At least historically. I think there's always exceptions.
I forgot they also reached for Rook.
Yeah. Other than that, though, like just if you're the Bucs, like guys, we'll take a kicker again in round 2 or round 1, or whatever they took him.
I think the Rukaroro move was much more defensible in that if you look at the interior defensive linemen in this class, the top 2 guys consensus-wise were Newton and Murphy, both of whom are considered undersized. If you're concerned, like if your defensive scheme, your coach, whatever, you don't want a smaller guy, you need a bigger body athlete, then I can easily see why Rukaroro might be the top defensive tackle on your board.
Any other surprises in terms of just sort of where guys went?
My biggest surprises, honestly, were when you mentioned this is kind of just going with what Bo was saying. I was surprised Troy Franklin fell to 102nd in the 4th round or the 3rd round with the Broncos. I mean, I get it. Like, he doesn't have the most advanced route tree, and he has some drop issues, but I just think speed-wise, there's plenty.
He's so good.
Yeah, but I get it. And then, Bud, you mentioned, like, Detroit just kind of drafting dudes who work. Like, them getting Mekhi Wingo as late as they did. It's like, I don't think Mekhi Wingo is some superstar, but I do think that, like, as far as workman-like rotation dude who you can probably rely on, he's worth it. And in this defensive tackle class where I thought there wasn't a ton of depth, I was like, I'm surprised he fell that far. And then speaking of the same thing, Christian Mahogany going to Detroit with the 210th pick. Like, Mahogany is somebody who strikes me based on watching him. Like, that dude's going to start. Like, he might not be an all-pro. He might not be, the greatest guard in the league, but he's going to start, and he's going to be a rotational piece on your offensive line. So for him to fall to the 7th round, and then, of course, the Bears got the best defensive player in the draft in the 4th round with the 122nd pick when they drafted Torrey Taylor from Iowa.
That's elite there. The one I'm going to go with is a guy, it's just so on the nose for how they draft and like how that team plays. The Steelers got Peyton Wilson with pick 98. I mean, 6'3" and 7/8, 233. He ran 4.43 at the combine with a 1.54 split and jumped 35 inches. And they're like, I don't know if he's going to make it to a second contract.
Who cares?
I don't care.
How many linebackers and running backs are you planning to sign to a second contract? It's who cares?
The first 15 picks were offense, or first 14 picks were offense. Do you think that suggests that we will have maybe a more defensive slanted game this year in our sport of college football?
No, I think it just suggests that nobody is like, I don't think this defensive class was all that great this year in the draft. Like, I don't think there was an edge rusher in this class, because it's like when you look at the top of the draft, it's always quarterback, offensive tackle, edge rusher. I thought there were quarterbacks. I thought there were tackles that were worthy of being up there. I didn't think there was an edge rusher in this class worthy of it. So I think you just see that slide. But I also wouldn't be surprised if next year an offensive tackle or an edge rusher are the number 1 pick.
Was it 10 wide receivers in the top 37?
Top 34, I thought.
Think so, yeah.
Right?
Okay. I
bet over 6.5 receivers first round, and that hit.
I took note of that. I was like, I wonder if I mean, like, look, you're still gonna have Texas looks like the wide receiver room is loaded. Ohio State's wide receiver room is loaded. It's not as though there are not individual places that are going to be, stockpiling talent at the wide receiver position. Georgia's wide receiver room is loaded. Oregon's might be right up there in that conversation as well. But I don't know if there's like a lot of super, super dominant wide receivers, and you combine that with 6 first-round quarterbacks. I could see the pass game anecdotally maybe feeling like there's less monsters in college football this year.
I mean, you did have 3 receivers in this draft that would most years be considered the number 1 receiver in the class.
If McMillan was in this draft, like, where is he going among the receivers? Is he like top 5, top 8?
He's at worst probably a late first.
Yeah.
Which McMillan?
Jalen, if he was in next year's class.
No. Arizona McMillan.
Oh, Tetaroa McMillan. Oh. Sorry, I was thinking Jalen.
Like him or A.D. Mitchell, him or Keon Coleman, him or Xavier Worthy. Like I think we can agree he's not top 3 amongst these guys so far.
No, but
he's pretty damn good.
He's really good. He would fall into A.D. Mitchell, Keon Coleman.
I would say late first, early second.
Kind of that Ricky Pearsall range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's maybe slightly better than that, but again, it would depend on what he ran. Like Pearsall jumped out of the gym and ran really well.
Right.
And was super productive. So, yeah, I mean, I think we have definitely like a receiver drought a little bit this year compared to this past year.
Time to run the dang ball, baby. Let's go.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Illinois is going 14-0.